And well, we'll keep admitting people, Nancy, as they come in. So welcome everybody to the February Department of Peace Building campaign call. Tonight we have guest speakers David Wick from Pathways to Peace and a special appearance from Hezekiah Gabriel, who is also Pathways to Peace. So while we're getting started here, if anybody hasn't had a chance to introduce yourself, just put if somebody has background noise going on, if we could just ask you to mute, that'd be great. But if anybody has come on, oh, we got another person coming on. If you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself, just put your name in the chat, your location, land acknowledgement, and maybe one or two words about where your gratitude lies right in this moment. Last person. And then I'll just start by saying that the Peace Alliance began in 2004, just celebrating our 20th anniversary last year. And it was started to promote a U.S. Department of Peace Building. And this call is part of our long-running and ongoing Department of Peace Building campaign calls on the third Wednesday of every month. The recorded calls are posted on the Peace Alliance website as part of our Peace On podcast series. So you'll be able to find this call on that podcast series on the Peace Alliance website. And I will put a link in the chat just so everybody has that. I'm trying to do too many things at once here. Okay, so here we are. The title of today's call is The Many Faces of the Culture of Peace and Badass Peace Building with David and Tez. Before we get started, I'll just give you a brief rundown of our agenda. Before we start the presentation, we'll just do a brief connection exercise to get everybody kind of centered. And then Nancy will update us on the newly reintroduced U.S. Department of Peace Building bill. And we also this year have a new sponsor of the bill, Representative Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. After that, we'll move into our segment with our guest speakers, David and Tez. And then after the presentation, we'll have a time for Q&A, and at that time you put your questions in the chat. And if we have any time permitting, we can ask people also to come online and ask questions. And then after the presentation, we'll end the call with a quote.
Hi, babe.
So next up is Lori Russo, who will be doing our connection exercise today.
Okay, thanks, Laura. If I could just ask people maybe to mute themselves since we're just going to go to this quiet place, that would be great. So it's good to be with you all. So let's just start taking nice, deep, full breaths. Just inhaling all that is good. Releasing all that is not necessary. Just letting go of any thoughts or preoccupations. Just relax as we continue to breathe in. Just relax your body, your head, your face, your shoulders. Your whole body's relaxed. And we just continue to breathe in, relax, and let go to this precious present moment. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in this present moment. We know this is a beautiful moment. Peace is who you are at the very core of us. We are love. We are peace. And centered in this peace, we connect now with our hearts. We connect to everybody in this circle, heart to heart to heart, sending love from our hearts to each other, to our families and our friends, our communities, our countries, and to our world. Imagine that light emanating, that love, that light of love and peace that's emanating from our hearts, just surrounding our world. In this understanding of oneness, we just hug, we hug our world. We know that there is only one of us out there. That other is you. And we are just so grateful for this oneness. In this moment, just for a few moments, as we have that peace within, as we share it with the world, imagine and feel a world at peace. Everyone working together, cooperating for the common good. The recognition that we are indeed one. There is peace, there is joy, there is harmony in our minds, in our lives, and in our world. And as we come back to this circle, we are just refreshed and renewed and open to learning how to become even more empowered peacemakers and peace builders. Let's take a deep breath. And so it is. Namaste.
Thank you, Lori. That was great. And now I'll turn it over to Nancy, who will give us our Department of Peace Building update.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lori. That was awesome. I want to thank everybody for being on the call during this Black History Month, this season for nonviolence. And I wanted to just give a shout out and gratitude that Leonard Peltier is free at last. He's been in prison for almost 50 years, and he's now back home in North Dakota. And his comment was that he was in prison for all these years, but they didn't break him. And for us all to keep on keeping on, really, that's what he's been doing for 50 years and he plans to continue doing. As many of you know, the Peace Alliance and the Department of Peace Building campaign have been advocating for many years for a Department of Peace Building with a Secretary of Peace Building. We've had a bill in every Congress since 2001. And with every Congress, when a bill doesn't pass, it has to be reintroduced. So the current bill was introduced on February 7th, not so long ago. And it's about our government standing for the world we want to see. It's very important to have that vision out there. In the bill, we set out a vision for that kind of world, and the bill quotes some language from the Earth Charter that includes, to move forward, we must recognize that in the midst of a magnificent diversity of cultures and life forms, we are one human family and one Earth community with common destiny. The Earth Charter calls for global security founded on respect for nature, universal human rights, economic rights, and a culture of peace. The Department of Peace Building bill and the season of for nonviolence are very much connected. The season for nonviolence is a 64-day period between the death dates of Mahatma Gandhi on January 30th and Martin Luther King on April 4th. It's celebrated around the world as a time to study and practice nonviolence. During this season, the Department of Peace Building campaign educates about the history of nonviolence and uses this time to advocate with members of Congress to sign on to the Department of Peace Building bill as co-sponsors. Introducing a bill in Congress is a long process. During the last few months, the DoP committee has collaborated with the office of our new bill sponsor, Representative Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. Shout out to all of you from Minnesota. We've worked with her on language and updates to the current bill and on gaining co-sponsors for the bill. We ended the last Congress with 49 co-sponsors, and this includes 43 who returned to Congress this year. So we're focusing right now on getting those 43 and some others who replaced the ones who left on as co-sponsors. So our group has been very involved in doing that and made lots of contacts with members of Congress. To ensure that as many 2023 co-sponsors would come on as possible, we kept the bill pretty close to the same as it was in the last Congress. We updated some statistics and added 2 new findings, and we advocated with Representative Omar's office to retain a little bit of the language that she was considering cutting. So the 2 new findings we added relate to the effectiveness of restorative practices and the connection between violence, economic insecurity, and poverty. One example of language that we advocated for her to keep that she was thinking of deleting is peace as a human right and a security issue. So she came to her senses and realized, yes, that's true. So that's in there now. As of today, we have 20 co-sponsors. 18 were sponsors in the last Congress, and 2 are new members of Congress, including Representative McIver. Yeah, McIver from New Jersey, who replaced the late Donald Payne, and Representative Sylvester Turner from Texas, who replaced the late Sheila Jackson Lee. I wanted to say just a little bit about Representative Turner. He now holds the seat that Sheila Jackson Lee held for many, many years. She was a Department of Peace Building co-sponsor throughout the years. And her friend, Representative Turner, is a very good friend of hers. So he wrote a really beautiful tribute to her in the Houston Chronicle. And he entitled it, "Sheila Jackson Lee Did Not Take No for an Answer." He said that she was everywhere, she was relentless, and she delivered. And he said, we must carry on Representative Jackson Lee's legacy. We must be everywhere, comforting the sick, confronting the powerful, and in the words of her dear friend, Congressman John Lewis, causing good trouble. We must be relentless in the pursuit of justice, equity, and equality. We must take our place in the long line of patriots who deliver the promise of America to all Americans. When I contacted that office to ask for his sponsorship, I pointed out that this was an awesome article, and that Sheila Jackson Lee had co-sponsored the bill 12 times in the past. and that I had no doubt she would be, if she were alive today, she would be an original co-sponsor of the bill. Congressman Turner signed on as an original co-sponsor. So we felt really happy about that. Throughout this season for nonviolence and this Congress, we'll be contacting members of Congress to get their co-sponsorship. We would love your participation. If anybody wants to participate with us or have assistance in arranging meetings, please contact Nancy at peacealliance.org, and we'll connect with each other. So I just want to end with gratitude to all of you who've been advocating for a Department of Peace building bill and who are here for some badass peace building. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And for those who don't know Representative Ulmer very well, we did a thank you graphic to thank her for sponsoring the bill, and I just popped that in the chat. So there's a nice picture of her, and you can get to know her a little bit. So we now move into the guest speaker segment. We have a surprise because we have two very wonderful speakers, talking about the many faces of a culture of peace and badass peace building. And I'm very pleased to introduce both David Wick and Hezekiah Gabriel from Pathways to Peace. If you guys could both maybe wave your hand or something so people know who you are or where you are. David is a dedicated peace builder and thought leader with decades of experience fostering a culture of peace on a local, national, and international level. He currently serves as the Pathways to Peace past president of the Rotary E-Club of World Peace and executive director and co-founder of the Ashland Culture of Peace Commission, which is an initiative that promotes peace building through community engagement, education, and collaboration. David played a pivotal role in bringing the World Peace Flame to Ashland, and it was a symbolic and perpetual beacon of peace that inspires individuals and communities to act for a more just and peaceful world. If that's not enough, David also has more than 30 years of executive and management training and organizational development consulting experience, and has held important positions with Sun Microsystems, Stanford, Levi Strauss, and the European Foundation for Management Development. Thank you, David. And our second speaker is Hezekiah Gabriel, who is the executive director of Pathways to Peace. Pathways to Peace is a UN peace messenger organization. It works locally and globally, cross-culturally and intergenerationally to eliminate barriers to peace and co-create programs that bring greater peace into our world. Tez also is the owner and senior consultant for Gabriel Associates, where she's been consulting for more than 33 years. Tez has worked with mission-based organizations and initiatives to create relevant, viable, and sustainable environments that affect real and positive change in our world. Tez also is an ordained minister who conducts interfaith and intercultural ceremonies and works with individuals and groups to empower the divine within each of us. And so I'm now going to turn it over to David and Tez.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much. I'm just really delighted to be here, really honored to be here. And just want to say, here we are as co-creators, collaborators of peace and peace building, all of us. And what this is a journey to some reflection, be open-minded to not only what you know, but what is opening now and what we're being called to, which you're going to help pinpoint a little bit. So we're going to go to a PowerPoint and I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. And see that up, please, Hezekiah. You're almost there. Okay, well, I'll just go ahead, but please put it in the full screen mode. So basically, we're talking about peace building, the culture of peace, and badass peace building. So it's going to be moving from the culture of peace essence of peace building and badass peace building, and what that means for us now, and what we see that we're being called to. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. There you go. So well, the statement there was Mother Teresa would always say that peace begins with a smile. And just think about that, and it makes a big difference, even doing that. Next, please. And there's many different forms of peace and peace building, but taking care of each other is a major part of it. Next. So fundamentally, it begins with each one of us daily. When we get up in the morning, what are our thoughts? How are we working in our relationships with our family? As our family, friends, our work, school, communities, when people say, well, I can't do anything about what's happening in Ukraine or Gaza, is that, well, you can do something about what we do in our daily lives, and that's where it all begins, with our own thoughts, with our own emotions, and it is local and global and personal and systemic, and it all does count. Next, please. So this is an important one. This is from the preamble of the UNESCO's Constitution, which began the beginning of the United Nations. Since wars begin in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. Fundamentally, is in our thinking. What's going on in our thoughts, our emotions. Next, please. And the foundation of the culture of peace, and many of you know about this, the culture of peace, which was the resolution was in 1999. Pathways to Peace was involved with the culture of peace and the language of the culture of peace in late 80s. And so this is the foundational piece for all of us. The culture of peace is a set of values, attitudes, and traditions, and modes of behavior and ways of life. There's the big picture. There's the overarching picture. There's all parts of our communities and our lives are the culture that we live within. It's the water we, like the fish, we live in. And this is about shifting mindsets and behaviors in all aspects of our societies as we move from force to reason, from conflict and violence to dialogue and peace building, and embrace humanity's interconnectedness and inner oneness, as was mentioned in the meditation earlier. Next, please. And there are 8 action areas that are fundamental to the culture of peace, and they are listed here. And I'll list those, I'll put those in the chat a little later, but these are all part of the foundation of the culture of peace. Next, please. And you get a reflection on we're in evolution, and it's clear. And we knew in the 60s and 70s that we are not in a non-sustainable culture and a system, and it's hitting the fan now. And my experience and research have convinced me that the world is on the verge of the greatest change in human history, the transition from the culture of war we've had for tens of thousands of years to a new culture, a culture of peace. That's from David Adams. He was the director of UNESCO, deeply involved with the culture of peace, as was Ambassador Chaudhry, who was a leader and has been, many of you know him, leader in the culture of peace and its evolution within the United Nations. Next, please. So I'm going to just give you briefly a highlight of, again, some of the phases of the culture of peace. In Ashland, Oregon, I've been with Pathways to Peace since 1980. I moved to Ashland in 2003, and with my partner, Irene Kai, we created co-founded the Ashland Culture Peace Commission, but it's to put into a city and a community the culture of peace. What does that look like? What does that mean? How does a city, a community embrace the culture of peace and start manifesting it. Next, please. And these are some of the things that we engaged in. And it's about education, inspiration, understanding, and so engaging with the city council, the Chamber of Commerce, with the police department, with all aspects of the community. And everyone has a role. Everyone has a responsibility. So I'll just give you a few highlights here. Next, please. One is working with the Ashland Police Department and the Police to Peace program, where they put a peace officer on all of their vehicles, and it became a part of the helping greater relationships with the police department and the community. Next, please. And many of you know about the International Cities of Peace, and we said yes, knowing about the International City of Peace and Fred Armand for many years, and it's about creating a global culture of peace. And we said yes, let's do that. So we helped Ashland join the International Cities of Peace in 2017, and becoming a city of peace and be known as a city of peace, which provides an umbrella for many things to be done within the city in the name of creating a culture of the city of peace. Next, please. And this is when we had a ribbon tying ceremony, not a ribbon cutting, but ribbon tying ceremony with the Chamber of Commerce, with the City Council, with many people in the community joining the International Cities of Peace. So it was a big deal. Next, please. And then Irene Kai, my partner, discovered the World Peace Flame in Wales in 2015, a 3-year journey to bring it here to Ashland, which we did, which is to be a symbol of peace and peace building in our hearts and in our communities. Next, please. This is the literal lamp. There's an biomass oil lamp. And we had the middle school students become the flame keepers. They kept it fueled and lit. Next, please. It has now evolved this last year to being the first in the world solar-powered World Peace Flame. The solar panel is off to the left there. Next, please. Part of the education and inspiration, we brought the Irene created an invocation which was invited to come and be given at the Oregon State Senate. Many people were very moved by that. Next, please. So here we are with the Department of Peace building, and here's who you are and deep into it. But peace building, a quick view into this, which many of you know, but be open-hearted about new possibilities. Next, please. Peace building, then this is something that Pathways to Peace helped to establish early in the, well, this is from the 1982 document. Peace building is the construction of new environments and new cultures which transform deficient structures and capabilities, and which unite the strengths of emerging innovations in all pathways of our local, global, planetary life. Peace building creates and maintains beneficial conditions for sustaining life, enhancing social, economic, political, and spiritual development of all peoples. Next, please. There are many different examples of the peace building. You've been involved with them, with the different activities, events. There's so much that's going on. And a major one is the Department of Peace building that we're working with. So I could just say, this is part of when we began with Pathways to Peace in the, I've been there since 1980, as I mentioned. In the early 80s, people had no idea. The peace building language was brand new. And I actually got, and I still have with Pathways, we have the URL peacebuilding.com, which is new. And here we are, just look at the evolution that has happened. There is social change that has happened to bring to where you are with the Department of Peace building. So there is evolution. Next, please. Another example of peace building, the International Day of Peace, which, everyone is aware of and part of. In 1981, it was the resolution. 1984, Pathways to Peace brought out the first major event in San Francisco in 1984. And people were scratching their head, well, what's the International Day of Peace? And we just started it. And here we are with hundreds of millions of people around the world, and some say a billion. So it, again, another example of evolution. Social change does evolve. Next, please. Another example is Rotary. Tezuka and I are part of the Rotary E-Club of World Peace, and Rotary's four-way test is an example of peace building within a major organization. Next, please. David Gershon. There we are. So what was sent out to many of you, and I think it is in the chat. Laura's going to put it there. But David Gershon, we're working with David, bringing peace building, peace on earth by 2030 into Rotary and many other places. He wrote a book, Social Change 2.0, and the introduction to that is very inspiring. And if you take a look and read that, should be in the chat, the link, you'll see there's a difference between social change on a whole nother level, 2.0, as opposed to what we usually do is straight on one-off programs and events. Next, please. You got it.
So, David, thank you for taking us through some of that incredible evolution throughout the years for the Peace Alliance, for peace building, for Pathways to Peace, for all of us who are committed to building peace in our world. So I get to talk about badass peace building. And badass peace building is a new approach for Pathways to Peace. It actually came through a council meeting where one of our council members said, you know, it's so amazing that it doesn't really matter what is going on around you. You continue to build peace, to stand for peace, to bring peace into every conversation. It's badass peace building. And immediately for David and I, we just said, yes, it's badass peace building. And it resonated with us. And I can honestly say that every time we put it out there now, it not only brings a smile to people's faces, but they go, yeah, that's it. The time is now to step in and step up our peace building. And I think we all know that. I think we're all called to that. And so badass peace building is what we're all about. So let me talk a little bit about what badass peace building doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that we're leaving behind the sacred underpinnings of our work that draw us into peace building. It doesn't mean that we are leaving aside compassion and kindness and respect and instilling hope and inspiring change. All of those things will coexist with badass peace building. So, what does badass peace building mean to you? So, I love this quote from Audre Lorde. So true, I think. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. And I think when we talk about the barriers to badass peace building, it comes down often to fear. And so it's time for us to keep our focus on that prize, that world free of violence, that world that is just, that new earth that we are all creating together, that earth where peace prevails. So I ask you, and I'd love for you to put your thoughts into the chat, to just take a few moments. And I'm going to ask David to just read out a few of those as they come through. What does badass peace building mean to you? When you hear that, when in your mind you see it, what does it mean to you? How does it look? How does it act?
Energetic and fun, being a warrior for peace, transforming myself into a lover of all. That's it so far.
Come on, let's do a few more.
Vibrant and courageous. Badass to me means radical outside the box thinking, persistence no matter what the obstacles, makes me smile, makes me want to take action and go for it. Let's do peace. Standing up for what is sacred, the earth, all people, all beings, do no harm, but take no shit. Peace is an action word, fierce, bold declarations and ideas.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to give you in a moment an opportunity. I guess let's mute.
That's a
Let's mute.
971 telephone. Someone muted.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, in a moment, we're going to put you into small breakout groups to really address how does badass peace building look to you, and we have some other questions for you as well. But to prepare for that, we're going to take just a moment. This is what I'm calling the fiery heart. And it's very meaningful to us at this particular time.
Did we lose Taz? I think we lost Taz.
Go ahead, Hezekiah.
Let me pull it up again. I got kicked out. A Zoom thing came in. I don't know what that was about, but let's go back in.
Yeah, so mute everybody else, please. You can do that.
Can you see this?
Yes, please go ahead. Hezekiah is muted. Hezekiah, you're muted.
The program's doing all kinds of silly things. So when I asked the universe, what's needed for badass peace building, what came immediately was that we needed to ignite our fiery hearts. And as I was telling David this, he said, "You won't believe this, but I have to show you something." David's partner is a recognized, really incredible artist. And this is a painting she did that hangs in their home. And so he quickly took a photo of it, and I said, "That's it." And in talking with Irene, her name is Irene Kai, she shared that, of course, her art is about service. and that this really, although it is a fiery heart, is also a portal. And I see it as the opportunity for an activation. So I'm going to kind of have you just put your hand on your heart and just kind of look at this beautiful fiery heart as we think about what it means to activate, to ignite that fire that exists within all of us, right there, the seat of the heart. And to ask, what does it mean to ignite your fiery heart? Why is it that we don't live into our fiery heart? Perhaps it's an old wound. Perhaps it's the fear of how we will look. Perhaps we're afraid of being rejected. Perhaps we believe that we'll be judged if we ignite our fiery heart. And I believe that this is about living into our authentic selves. Igniting and activating our fiery heart is really about being present, standing in our own power, speaking our own truth. That is what happens when we ignite that fiery heart. So I hope that you'll take this image and your own reflections about badass peace building into our small group exercise. And it's,
excuse me, given the timing, I don't think you have time for that because we need to end at 5 minutes to the top of the hour. So
Okay.
perhaps we just have an open discussion.
so let's do that. Let me put the slide up for here are the small group questions. And so I'd like you to just ponder them for a moment. What does badass peace building mean to you? What are examples of badass peace building? And how does this apply to manifesting the U.S. Department of Peace Building, what we're all here about? So let's open it up. David, I can't see hands, so
No,
you'll
perhaps
get to
you could,
call.
perhaps you could take down the slides.
Okay.
Let's just have open discussion.
And if you don't want to raise your hand and be called upon, we only have a few minutes, as I see now, to take a few of your responses. Then you can put your thoughts in the chat as well.
There's a question from Ariel.
Yeah.
Yes. Ariel.
You need to unmute.
Just a quick comment. There are at least 3 of us on this call from Canada, all from the community I'm grateful to live in the Rocky Mountains of Canada. And we're in a very unique relationship to peace building currently, as all of our Americans neighbors know. So I'll just say that with great love, kinship, and let's get this right, whatever that means.
Yes, thank you. And certainly where we're at this time in the U.S., but around the world calls us into being bold, being audacious, standing in our own truth. So thank you for that reminder. Yes, thank you.
I
David
see
Hazen.
David Hazen. Do you see him?
Yes, please, David.
I just recently thought that what would fit this definition is learning to love your enemies in a very vulnerable, humble way.
Beautiful.
But I mean, that comes straight out of nonviolent communication
Of course it does.
and Marshall Rosenberg.
And it's also core to peace building in general. But I think in these days, it takes even more courage. And so fits beautifully with badass peace building.
So let me, there's a couple things in the chat here. So it, let's see, asking for, urging, and advocating for something that might seem impossible right now.
Yay! What a beautiful response. Yes.
Another is believing it is possible to have a U.S. Department of Peace Building.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Being confident in standing for peace publicly, communicating that peace is practical and pragmatic,
Yes.
talking with people we disagree with,
Yes.
keeping it out in front.
Yes. That talking with people we disagree with goes back to what David Hazen said too. So important. If we're called to do that, that we step into that. Yes. Talking to everyone we know, I saw came up. Yes.
So there's a couple
I-
more. Go ahead.
I was just going to say to our Canadian friends, standing up for your right to have your own country.
Yes. Yes.
No kidding. Another is renewed inspiration and determination, determining new ideas of action. Talking to everyone we know, getting kids involved, all ages. Empowering youth voices. Staying peaceful and loving at our deep core despite our environment and the, quote, weather around us. Dynamic and courageous resistance.
Beautiful. Yes, that is badass peace building. So,
And I could just say that I experienced it myself. For me, it's also stepping into all the more out of my comfort. I was in a meeting and someone was disrespecting another person. Rather than letting that go, I stepped in to call it out, and we had a discussion and worked it out. So we're not hard feelings, but it required stepping into it. So it's looking at this calls for powerful energy, stepping in all the more. This is the time that is calling all of us to our highest and best. And that's very much what Social Change 2.0 is with David Gershon, hugely about stepping into being inspired and having the tools to just move forward. Go ahead,
yes,
please.
yes, yes, yes. You all know it. You all feel it. I'm sure you feel the call, right? That it's time to step in and step up. And so, are you ready to say yes? That sacred yes to badass peace building? I want to see this or
Yes.
you ready? Yes.
Yes.
Let's
Yes.
open our mics. Let's open our mics. Because together we're going to give out that powerful, sacred yes to badass peace building. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Do you feel the power?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for having us. David, any closing words?
Well, again, we're all co-creators. We're all doing this together. We're collaborators in the many different ways that we are, and we're across the country here. So let's just keep moving and knowing, as was mentioned in the beginning, of our oneness, of our interconnectedness, and we move forward. We're not alone. There are many, many more beyond us that are right here.
Yes. And I would just end with what we say at Pathways to Peace is that you are a pathway to peace. Embrace that power, activate and ignite that fiery heart, and let's move forward, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, creating the world that we know we can create, that world of peace. So thank you.
Thank you, David,
Thank you.
Tez, for that wonderful, inspiring, engaging presentation. I think everybody really enjoyed it. And I did. I also mentioned something new, which is that Tez and David have started a collaboration to create another World Peace Flame in San Francisco. And the Peace Alliance and Department of Peace Building Committee are going to be participating in that. We have the main representative, I think, still on the call. Lamina, if you're here, you can raise your hand. She's going to be helping Tez and David, being our representative and helping Tez and David make that happen. A really beautiful World Peace Flame. I think it's got flames from 7 directions around the world all coming together to create one master flame. So it's very beautiful. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Nancy to kind of close out the meeting.
Yeah. Weirdly, we have a couple minutes. I don't know if there are any of you who wanna say anything or add anything about what's just taken place, about this beautiful presentation. Any other comments to follow up? I know a thank you is in order for sure to David and Tez. Lori.
Yeah, so thank you for this. It's funny, about a month ago, I was telling Nancy that, I know that that the means, the means and the ends have to be the same, right? In order to have peace, we have to be peaceful. But I said this time around, I said I want to kick ass for peace is the words I used. It's like, so because I could see the Capitol from where I live on the rooftop, and I send love to these members of Congress, and I try to imagine, I see like the color orange, the color of courage. I do whatever I can, but now when I go up there, it's more like, not on my watch, not on our watch, not in my city, So I think a lot of us have been feeling that way anyway. And the other thing I will add, I had a great conversation where I've kind of struggled with the language for peace, even like peace warriors. We have to fight. And I kind of struggled with that. But you know what? I'm okay with those words now because I'm still going to come from a place of love. It's just elevated to a different degree.
That's right. That's right.
Beautiful, yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Barry had something.
who else?
Barry.
Yeah, all I wanted to add was there's a book out that I read a long time ago called The Peaceful Warrior. It's a worthwhile read, and they did a movie on it a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barry.
I can't think of who the star was, but it was a big star, and it's got a great story. So if you get a chance, find it and read it.
Sounds beautiful. Thank you, Barry.
We had Ann Creeder.
Well, I would just like to say that in listening to the inspiration that I gleaned here tonight, that the Department of Peace campaign and committee throughout the last couple of months, like before the election and then after the election, you've just been so like badass, kick-ass, and just like focusing on still like just going on and doing our business, getting co-sponsors for the Department of Peace. And, sometimes I really struggle with that right now. And I needed to hear this tonight. So thank you, David and Tez.
Yes, indeed.
And the Department of Peace Committee.
Mhm.
Amina has something.
Yes, thank you, David. Thank you both, David and Tess, for that inspiring talk. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, and Anne covered it a little bit as well, is about the work that we do promoting or getting co-sponsors for the Department of Peace Building Act, HR 1111. As Anne mentioned, it sometimes takes hundreds of emails, multiple meetings. It takes us sometimes driving 1 or 2 hours to attend the town hall meeting for a member of Congress just to get their attention for 1 minute. And so just not giving up in making sure that we get those co-sponsors and that support from members of Congress. It takes a level of badassness, as you all pointed out, and I see that in all of us. And so thank you for that inspiring talk and just describing what we've been doing to promote the bill.
It's really our desire that you can carry that image with you. And in those times where, you can get demoralized because you're on the 50th email or whatever it happens to be, or you're with someone who just doesn't get it or doesn't choose to, that you can pull up that image of that
Absolutely.
fiery heart to go to your heart and to allow that to give you the courage to stand in your own power and speak your own truth. And so
Absolutely. It's imprinted in my mind, honestly, that fiery heart. And actually, I'm a big fan of the fiery heart also comes from, I'm a student of Sufism, and the
Yes.
fiery heart is very symbolic of true, pure love
Yes,
that ignites your heart. And so I love that.
that's it.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And I think it's also important to realize we are in the evolution of a major transformation. This is not a small one. This is not just a few years, a few decades. Huge. And this is part of the trip. This is part of the deconstruction of systems that are unsustainable anyhow. And we are moving forward in the new shoots, the growth, this is what we're within is eternal. The heart, the love, the compassion, the oneness. There's nothing else that is beyond that. So we're part of that evolution.
Yes. And now we are out of time.
We want to get out of time, right? So I want to thank everybody. There's a bunch of links in the chat to endorse Department of Peace Building and various other actions you can take. Our next call, we meet on the third Wednesday of every month. So our next call is March 19th. And we'll continue these kinds of discussions and hope you'll all join in that call. And I'm supposed to channel one of our committee members, Charlie, in the closing quote. So pretend I'm Charlie. And what I want to do is just repeat a little bit of what Congressman Turner said about Sheila Jackson Lee. It struck me that we must be everywhere, confronting the sick, comforting the sick, confronting the powerful, and in the words of Congressman John Lewis, causing good trouble. We must be relentless in the pursuit of justice, equity, and equality. We must take our place in the long line of patriots who deliver the promise of America to all Americans. So thank you. And I apologize to those of you from Canada for what America's inflicting on you right now.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody, for joining the call.
Much love.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
On we go.